Hey, well, what's up, guys? Welcome to The Collision, another episode of The Collision Live. As always, it's Daniel Blackaby here, joined at the desk once again by the one, the only, Sam Camp. How you doing?
Good to be with you. Doing well, doing well.
Yes, this is our third week.
Yeah.
We're still going strong. Again, we appreciate you guys that have been joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're joining us again, then welcome back. And again, as we're talking about some of these topics, some of these things going on in pop culture, please share your thoughts in the comments, ask questions. We'd love to sort of just talk about these with you as we're kind of processing what's going on. And it was a week in culture. A lot of stuff happened.
Lots to get to, for sure.
One thing I did get to, I know we mentioned it last week, that I was disappointed that America didn't seem to flock to the Jaws in theaters. Back in theaters again after 45 years. Wasn't topping the box office chart, so I did my part. I returned to theaters for the first time in months. I saw Jaws.
What was that like?
It was just as perfect as it is on home video, but just bigger. It's a perfect movie. There may or may not be a extensive deep dive article coming on the Collision next week on Jaws.
We'll be holding our breath for that one.
I'm sure we all will. But probably the biggest thing that happened this week, which was kind of a shocker, a bombshell, was dropped. Chadwick Boseman of Black Panther fame shockingly passed away from colon cancer, and it was crazy. It kind of came out of nowhere. One of those kind of reminded me of like the Kobe Bryant death. He's he's a guy he's fit, he's young, he's at the peak of his career, and then he's just kind of gone instantly.
I mean it's just crazy. Like, it just seems so sudden. But I didn't even know that he was battling colon cancer.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knew that he was. Again, people have been posting kind of in memory of him, some different like videos of him talking about, visiting hospitals and dealing with, encouraging kids that are dealing with cancer, as he was going through the Black Panther movies were coming out. And kind of in hindsight, it's crazy that.
Yeah, that he made all those films. Like in between like surgeries, and it's just insane.
And the tweet, we have it up on the screen, that kind of the last one that was on his account announcing that he had passed away. It's the most liked tweet in the history of Twitter.
Wow.
And again, liked not as in, people are happy about this, but just people paying their respects, kind of interacting with this tweet.
Yeah.
It's the most, I think the former President Barack Obama held the record until this one kind of blew it out of the water. Millions and millions of people. So why do you think that is? What do you think about this man's life has made it such a wide-reaching kind of cultural moment with his passing?
Well, I mean, I think certainly the suddenness of it, I think, has a lot to do with it. I think a lot can be said, like even when Kobe Bryant passed away, it's a shocking thing. It's not. It's and he's so young too. I think he's 40. He was 43.
Yeah.
So like that's super young to pass away suddenly. And I think for a lot of us, we just didn't know that he was battling cancer, and so there wasn't this lead up to prepare people for something. And so I think a big part of it is the shock, but also just he had played so many iconic roles just in the past like decade.
And do you know what's crazy about that, which I hadn't realized on the day that he passed, but kind of reading up about it after, is he. He's famous for being Black Panther, probably his most famous role that he was done. He also played Jackie Robinson, the baseball player, kind of the trailblazing player. Number 42, is kind of the famous number in honor of Jackie Robinson. I found out that actually usually there's a Jackie Robinson Day in baseball where all the players wear 42 and they kind of celebrate the legacy. It's usually in April, but because of the pandemic, they bumped it. So it's actually the day that Chadwick Boseman died was Jackie Robinson Day, 42.
Oh, wow.
He's the iconic character or actor that played it. It's just one of those kind of bizarre coincidences that kind of make the moment kind of more surreal. But I think, whenever, again, we did an article on Kobe Bryant when he passed away, kind of similar, kind of processing it in a similar way. I think it's important as Christians, whenever there's one of these kind of big, kind of shocking deaths, to think about it and to kind of think about what it means in our culture. Because I think sometimes you get, and I've already seen some of it on social media. Obviously, people are dying every day. COVID all the more people are passing away.
Right.
And
Right.
so I've seen some comments, it's just because he was famous, does that mean his life's worth more? People aren't, paying their respects to every single person that passes away the same way. Aren't we all equal? And obviously, his life's not worth any more than anyone's. We're all created by God. But I think when someone of this sort of stature, or someone, that is well known as this, his life just touched more people.
Yeah.
There's sort of that direct connection through his movies, through all that he's done in his career, that makes it
Yeah.
more of a cultural moment for us.
sure.
And I think,
Well, and I think just the characters that he played as well were just so iconic and so relatable, and so I think that I think that's part of it as well.
yeah, I think it's hard to understate kind of the significance culturally of Black Panther.
Yeah.
Again, if we weren't doing the collision back when the movie came out, I like the movie. I don't think it's as good as perfect as a movie as a lot of people did, but I think this culturally, what that meant to have him as the front and center superhero,
Yeah.
for so many people, it really can't be understated.
No.
I think his passing, the respects that are being paid, kind of show that his role in his life meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
What do you think, even just before we move on to the next kind of topic in our discussion, what do you think it means that he played a superhero? Because I think in some ways, for me, it almost puts more in contrast. There's a guy that you're used to seeing as like this invincible,
Right.
can't die superhero, which just kind of makes it more jarring when you realize that the reality, that might be kind of the fiction, but the reality is that life is temporary. Even fictional superheroes get sick, they die.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it brings it back to the cycle of life. I mean, everybody dies. Like, that sounds morbid, but I think we're often very just sort of insulated from mortality. And I think, especially with like superhero movies and with the characters that he played, there's even further insulation from mortality, and that, like, no one is ever really dead, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and so you can kind of trick yourself into thinking that death isn't even a real thing. I think not consciously, but I think subconsciously we can kind of just think, oh well, that doesn't really happen. And so I think when you're kind of brought face to face with this, especially for a character, someone who played just these iconic characters, and you feel like, and I think with actors it's perhaps a little bit different, because you feel like you know them. Like, obviously you don't know them because you only know them as the characters that they portray, but I feel like there is a bit of an intimacy there. Obviously it's one-sided, like, but you feel like you knew that person in some way, if not just the character that they played. And so I think that that plays into just sort of
I think cinema in a lot of ways is sort of an escape from reality. It's where we kind of live our eternal youth and all this. And I think in moments like this, like, our culture's thinking about death, thinking about the reality of life. I think as Christians, we seem to be aware that these conversations are going on.
Yeah.
And obviously as Christians, with the Bible, we know we have something to contribute to that conversation that's very important about the temporariness of life. So I think it's an important thing to keep in mind. It's not just a pop culture story. I think it's a human story for the church. Well, the second, we can get into the second again. Last week we had kind of the Netflix controversy. We have another controversy this week. Again, this is one that it's not necessarily a new controversy, but it's a continually unfolding controversy, and that's with J.K. Rowling. And in a sense, you can say that this controversy has been going on for 25 years. She's been a controversial figure, based on the Harry Potter books, and then some of the stuff she said and some of the decisions she's made. She's been kind of through the news. She's been a controversial figure. Again, she's in the news again this last week. She had I think it's the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award. Was awarded last year for kind of humanitarian social causes, kind of for being a champion of that. Well, she, depends on which side of the story you're listening to. She either gave it back or she had it taken back. It's either I quit or you can't fire me, I quit. So she gave it back. She's been in the news lately for what people are calling like transphobic comments. She wrote an article kind of pushing back on, the fact that in her view, the transgender kind of the extreme activist side of the transgender movement is erasing a lot of what was kind of the progress that's been made through the feminist movement, saying you're kind of erasing my individual insignificance as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been kind of back and forth in the news. Again, this isn't necessarily the forum for us to go into each of the things she said, but I think she's just an interesting figure because in a lot of ways, this whole kind of ongoing, never-ending controversy exposes just it's a great case study for how we are as a culture. She's been canceled by kind of the Christians and the conservatives. Now she's being canceled by the liberals and the
Yeah.
non-Christians, and it. What do you think this says about our culture? What does this say about the way what do we expect from these celebrities, or, how, sort of this cancel culture and all that?
Yeah, well, obviously it's a very I think a very complex just overall just the cultural forces that are at play here, J.K. Rowling specifically, cancel culture, all of these things, there's a lot that could be said, but I think uh, you know, one thing I feel like when people dogpile on her for being transphobic or making these statements, which if you look at them, I don't know that you could characterize them that way, and I don't think you could look at her life and say that she's some alt right type of person that hates progress or I don't think you could do that in any way, and yet there's this idea of this new cultural standard or cultural bar that's been set, that just went into place yesterday. And it's like, if you don't toe this line now, then you're not actually, an ally, or you're not, you know, you're not saying the right things. Things that were okay to say, 2 days ago are suddenly not. And if you don't come to terms with that with the rapidity that we put it in place, then you'll be canceled. And so there's just this idea that people can't think for themselves, or have differing opinions, that doesn't equate hate for the person who holds a different opinion.
Yeah, because again, she won this award this last year, and she was controversial and kind of making a stand for the whole kind of gay Dumbledore kind of issue that came out, and she's a strong, powerful woman. She's sort of the embodiment of sort of that feminist ideal.
Yeah.
She shared in her own essay. She shared about her own Me Too, the sexual assault, and it's crazy that if you were to look at all of that last year, she's sort of the pinnacle of what sort of that movement's going for.
Yeah, and it's like she has accomplished so much and is perhaps one of the, if not the richest woman in the world. It's got to be close. And really self-made. She ticks all the boxes of all the success stories and all of the overcoming that you could possibly think of.
Yeah, and I think it.
And up until last year.
Yeah, and I think kind of watching this whole thing play out, in a lot of ways, this sort of exposes where our culture's at on all sides of the conversation, because you see a lot of kind of double standards. If you were to, look back a couple of years, she's being celebrated by, one segment of society, and, people getting after conservatives for being so uptight about, having the kind of forcing in the gay Dumbledore story, and just, it's just a story, it's just powerful, and you have kind of the conservatives talking about, hey, just write your story, don't push all these social agendas. Then you flip the switch to 2020, and you have almost the opposite, where you have a lot of the same people that were mad at her for what she did with Dumbledore, and kind of accusing her of just trying to toe the line of being current and being woke, are now celebrating her taking a stance. And you have the other segment that was telling the conservatives to kind of chill out. Now they're saying they're burning books and mad at her, and just write your stories. You don't need to insert all your hateful comments. And it's crazy. We could go into all the what she actually wrote and break that down. Maybe we'll do that in an article at some point. But I think it just sort of holds up the mirror that I think we have this expectation on these celebrities that we're okay with them preaching as long as they're preaching what we want said.
Yeah.
But if they're not, then we're we want to cancel them. We want to hold them accountable. And I think as wherever you fall on any of these issues, it's just important I think for us to be aware that we're not having we're not making up the rules as we go.
Yeah.
So again, we'll be following this story. If you guys have any thoughts, again, throw them in the comment section. But I think it is it's just such a perfect case study for what, in a lot of ways, why our culture is so divisive. Just centering around.
Yeah, it sort of has all of the elements of our culture kind of in one story right now.
So again, yeah, I'm sure this won't end soon, so we'll be kind of.
It won't be
that.
the last.
But hey, this week at the Collision, we got some interesting stuff coming up. We just posted an article today called "When Christian Leaders Fail."
Yeah, it's a really good article.
This is one I wrote, but it's an important one.
I mean, it's okay.
it's okay. It's a B plus, but. Again, there's been sort of a steady stream of prominent Christian leaders that have been failing morally, or abuse and all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes our initial response to this is kind of, hey, our faith is in God, not people. If people fail and that affects our faith, then we didn't have our faith in the right place. And I think that's true. But I think sometimes we overlook the impact that actually has on our culture when self-professing, regardless of what their true faith was, when they let us down. So I kind of wrestle with that a bit. What does that mean? What are younger generations in particular looking at? How are they viewing Christianity when these prominent, outspoken leaders kind of fail in what they're preaching? So again, check that out. I guess the podcast is still coming.
Yeah,
it will be here eventually.
It's in the works. We promise.
Yeah. Again, if you guys notice any stories, anything going on in the culture this week, let us know too. We can maybe next week we can get to it, or we try and pick out the biggest things that are going on. But again, there's tons of stuff happening every week. But
yeah, but if there's anything you want us to touch on week to week as we go, just let us know for sure.
Yeah, we'll be happy to kind of adapt on the fly. But anything you just noticed in culture this week? Anything?
Well, something that I'm excited about, actually, I stumbled upon. David Blaine is doing.
See the street musician?
Yeah. Illusionist extraordinaire, crazy man. But he's doing a thing called Ascension, and it's going to be on YouTube Live. I think tomorrow morning at like 9 a.m., weather permitting. Basically, that image of like a boy being taken away by a bunch of balloons. He's gonna do that, and I think he's gonna get up to 18,000 feet or something, like hanging on to this just pile of balloons, and it looks amazing, and it's just ridiculous because I think he also has his parachute is gonna be in one of the balloons, and of course
is this
because
live?
this is yeah.
Okay, so we don't know if he's made it.
yeah. No, so this is I think happening tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I think. But you can just Google it. I'm sure you can find it. So that's super fascinating, and I think it's kind of interesting, just during this time of COVID and stuff too, like to have something just so extreme and ridiculous and awesome happening. So I'm hopefully I can catch that. Or
again, my big cultural thing this week was seeing Jaws for the first time in theaters.
Nice.
That is a perfect movie. One thing we forgot to say too, as far as what's coming on the Collision, we are together going to the movie theater on Friday to see Christopher Nolan's much anticipated movie Tenet. I know some of you guys, they're doing some early screenings, I think today, so some of you guys will have already seen that. But we've been excited for this movie for
a long time, since we the first teaser about it. I've been pumped, and of course it's Christopher Nolan, so you can't not be excited.
So again, we'll have our video and probably our original review out on Friday. So if you guys see it before that, come talk about it with us. If you guys are just kind of waiting to know whether it's worth going to the theaters,
there are a lot of big names in this, and I did not realize just how many just big stars were in this movie. I was looking through the cast.
Yeah, and it's gonna be crazy.
It's insane.
So again, keep your eye open for that. We're excited. Hopefully, we have nothing but good things to share with you guys with our review. But hey, guys, thanks for checking us out again. Thanks for joining us, whether over your lunch or whether you're watching us live or watching us again on playback. It's been fun to kind of talk about culture. It seems like there's always new stuff to talk about. And I just think as Christians, it's just important to kind of have our finger on the pulse of what's happening in our culture, and how should we approach it and kind of engage in these conversations that are going on all around us. So thanks for joining us. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Hope you enjoy seeing Tenet if you go see it, and continue to collide with your world for Christ.
See ya.